If you ever looked, again, for you do it at home mikubalim out there, if you ever looked at any kameya, one of the main names on the kameyas is Amasla'i bas Karnebo, is like, that's like king. If you, anyone out there writing a kameya, if you want to make it look authentic, you have to have Amasla'i bas Karnebo in there. That's key. Otherwise, you don't know, you're not, then you're for sure amateur mikubal. So Amasla'i bas Karnebo is a key Kabbalistic name. In fact, in the Pachad Yitzchak, and this you should remember. Pachad Yitzchak was written by one of the Kadmonim, one of the Italian Mikubalim, not Mikubalim, one of the Italian Gedolim, who wrote the first encyclopedia of Lamdos. It's called Pachad Yitzchak, not to be confused with Rav Hutner. Pachad Yitzchak was written by Rabbi Yitzchak Lamprunti. He wrote it without any computers. He says, he found in an ancient document that if you're in trouble with the government, if you want to find favor in the eyes of the government, you have a chveis, you forgot to put a quarter in the meter on Central Avenue. That's the worst thing that should ever happen to somebody. It's a bracha, that's a good bracha, And you want to find favor be'inei hashilton, say 3 times, Amasla'i bas Karnebo, Amasla'i bas Karnebo, Amasla'i bas Karnebo. They're going to say, what? Well, the machine was broken or something. Okay. The Chida writes, in the Delash Lafi, that if you're standing before the Sar or the Shilton and you want to get off the hook, then say Toiv Pa'amim 17 times. Amasla'i bas Karnebo. Amasla'i bas. Come on, let's do it. Okay? 17 times. In fact, if you ever saw, the Chida has a wondrous sefer, it's called Avodas HaKodesh, which is basically a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. And in the back of it, he has different contrasim. One of the contrasim are Kaf HaChaim. It's called Kaf Achas. So the Chida also writes different Segulah there. He says a Segulah to get off the hook, Lefnei HaShilton, is you say, Amasla'i bas Karnebo, Tes Vav Vez Pa'amim, and then he brings from the Ramban, you should say, Migdal Oiz Shem Hashem Boy Yaratz. Okay, and for further Segulah, you could see the Chida Sefer Kaf Achas. So interesting, I saw in the biography of the Kloisenberger Rebbe, there was a testimonial by a Holocaust survivor. His name was Eliezer Steisel. And he says, when the Hungarians came and they took us away to labor camps, I went to the Rebbe for a bracha that I should survive the war. So the Rebbe told me, Im shloish eila yas, if you do the following 3 things, then yishmarcha alekim v'tinatza, you'll be saved. The Rebbe said, always be careful to wear a yarmulke. Always be careful to have your head covered. I guess that means, maybe even when you're sleeping. By the way, do you have to wear a yarmulke when you're sleeping? You don't have to. It's not required lahalach. It's milsa de chasidus. It's a saintly practice. A nice thing to do. It's a good thing to do, but it's not absolutely required. But I guess the Rebbe told him be extra careful. Uvenatilas yadayim, you should always be careful that you have water. Now this is something you see, people make, I don't know where they get this from, that they're in a park, so they have to wash natilas yadayim. So what do? They hold the sandwich on the silver foil. Really? There's no such thing. There's no such thing. Torah zu loy tehei machlefes. When God gave us the Torah in Har Sinai, that's not part of the Torah. That's not one of the halachas. Holding the silver foil. You wash your hands. There's something called natilas yadayim. So people then say, okay, I'll use a plastic cup. Mehechi teisi, you could use a plastic cup. It's a disposable cup. Chachila, you have to use a real cup. So then people say, I'll use 2 cups. Chacham from the Manashtana, what do you mean 2 cups? What do 2 cups do? If 1 plastic cup don't do nothing, so how does taking 0 plus 0 is oichet 0? It's not ois gehalten lahalacha that you could use 2 plastic cups. So what do? You bring a cup with you, and you follow the Shulchan Aruch. No, I forgot to bring a cup. So go to the gift shop and buy a cup for $5. What's the big deal? The Shulchan Aruch gives a havtacha that being nizar and natilas yadayim is a shmira for parnasa. At the very least, you'll make at least another $5 that year. That I think we could guarantee that you. Al natilas yadayim is gematria ani, is Rosh Tevis ani. Shulchan Aruch says it's not it's brought in the Shulchan Aruch. So you have to be careful in natilas yadayim. Also by kiddush. Where does it come from? You can make kiddush on a plastic cup. If you live in Biafra, or in Africa, or in a third world country, where there are no cups, so maybe you can make Kiddush on a plastic cup. We live in the United States of America. You have more than enough kaisos in your house. You don't even know what to do with all the kaisos in your house. You go to a Kiddush, you make Kiddush on a normal cup. So I don't have a cup, so do you have to eat? If you want to eat, make sure you have a kais. Disposable is b'diavad at the best. Anyway, and the third thing, the Kloisenberger Rebbe said, cover your head. Netilas Yadayim. And say the following three things. Yavai hamelach vehamon hayom Rashi Tevos Yud Kei Vav Kei. Say alakad Meir aneni, and say Amasla'i bas Karnebo. If you do these three things, then Yishmarcha Elokim v'tinatzal. God will save you. And he says Kachava. So this is definitely as part of 5 things. In other words, if you're in a bad matzav and you're careful to cover your head, and you're careful to wash until Sidayim, and you say Yavai Hamelach v'Haman Hayom, and you say Alakad Meir Aneni, there is evidence that Amasla'i bas Karnebo is also a contributing factor. Anyway, so what exactly is the Segulah of Amasla'i bas Karnebo? That's anybody's guess. There's an interesting sefer by Rav Naftali Chaim Gutman called Perushim Nechmadim, and he says that, I'm sure you figured this out already, Amasla'i bas Karnebo is Gematria 1162. And now, Amasla'i bas Karnebo gave birth to the head of our people, the Rosh Avos Olam. The Gematria of He, Hailida, L'Rosh Avos Olam is 1162. The same Gematria as Amasla'i bas Karnebo, obviously. Yeah, I knew you figured that one out already. And she gave birth to Avraham Avinu, who was what? Tzaddik Katamar Yifrach, was also 1162. And what kind of situation was Avraham born? They wanted to throw him, into the fire as soon as he was born. Avraham Avinu was Umei Ashpois Yorim Evyon, 1162. So he goes to Eretz Yisrael. And what was he mispalo in Eretz Yisrael? Asay Leman Yerushalayim, which is 1162. And what else did he say? He said, Uvnei Oisa Bekarov Biyamenu Binyan Oilam, which is Gematria Amasla'i bas Karnebo. So, what exactly the Segulah is, I don't know, but certainly it's brought in many sources, including the Chidah, in a number of places, that it has a certain power. One of the Perushim on the Arizal says, it's an interesting halacha, alumdus. Let's say a person comes and their wife says, I'm tummy. And an hour later she said, no, just joking. She's tummy. She's tummy. She said she's tummy. Unless she could give a what? An amasla, an excuse why I only said it because you didn't take out the garbage. But it was just an excuse. An amasla. It's a din. If you give an excuse, then it takes off the shavi nafshi chaticha yisura. So some of the Perushim Ari says the name Amasla'i comes from the word Amasla. She was the excuse to bring Avraham Avinu into the world. In other words, like we said, they didn't want to release his neshama until they saw something that seemed like a davar isur. And that was the excuse to it. So sometimes you're in a tough matzav, and you need an Amasla, you need a good excuse to get out of it. That excuse might be Amasla'i bas Karnebo.